Hey, it's MK, and I am here with another 31 days of cut files with MK and Janet, and this is the day 10 cut file, and we are starting a new week, so we are actually on week 2, even though we did 2 days before the weeks started, and we are using this awesome little weather cluster that was created by Janet, and it has just everything. It's got the wind, the lightning storm, a little bit of raindrops, some clouds, the moon. I mean, it is awesome just the way that it is. And I thought it would be perfect to do some work photos. My husband always takes a bunch of work photos, especially when the weather is awful, gorgeous, pretty, sun rising, sun setting. I mean, all the good things. And so I wanted to do that because he works in all kinds of weather. And because this is portraying all kinds of weather, I thought it was absolutely perfect. So, of course, I went to my Cricut and my die cut machine because I did a layout in May or June for the Scrapbook Fun Summit, and I did the layout for Janet. I know that seems kind of weird. I did the layout for myself, but the pictures were they were Janet's pictures, and so technically I did the layout for Janet, and I've been wanting one of my own. And I had, of course, I had the file with all these gears, so I cut out the gears. I also had the dimensions for all the layers. I also had, so this gear file here that I am sharing with you guys was actually the freebie. So if you signed up for the summit, you would get this file here as a free cut file. Of course, it wasn't pre-cut. You would have to have a machine in order to do it. Or I have actually seen girls print them and then fussy cut them out by hand. So they just print in, I think it's white and it has a black outline, or I'm not sure how she does it. But that's what I know. And then I pulled out 2 gray-white cardstocks. I also printed several snowflakes out of a shimmer cardstock from Creative Memories instead of the trees that I used in Janet's layout. I had these. This was actually the VIP cut file from the summit, and so basically you got this awesome wood grain, and what I used it for was for a stencil, and this was the end result after I was done with the stencil. And to make it go by faster, I actually used 2 of them, and I happened to have them left over, so I thought, oh, perfect. And instead of using all white cardstock for like I did with Janet's layout, I pulled in colored cardstock to help me go by a little bit faster. At least I was hoping that it was going to go by faster, but it ends up not going by fast at all. So one of the things that I pulled out that I haven't pulled out in a long time are my favorite watercolors ever, and they're these watercolor brushes by Altenew. And here I'm just sharing with you guys that they come in 4 different sets. There's a spring, a winter, a summer, and an autumn set of watercolors, and then I swatched them all just to share with you guys what the colors look like dried on the most typical cardstock that I use, which is my Close to My Heart White Daisy. So I have those, and then I fast forwarded this a lot because again, my video would have been like an hour long had I left all of this in for you guys. But I am going through my swatches and picking out what colors I want to use for this cut file. And because this cut file is very open and aloof, I guess is the best word, I plan on coloring the elements so they stick out a little bit more. Now, in the end, when you put it on the layout, I should have left it white. Yes, I should have. But I don't realize that, and I love how it looks all colored. So I'm using my silver pen, which is a silver metallic. It's the only metallic that comes in any of the sets. There's no gold or copper or any of those. It's just this silver, and I'm using that for the lightning bolt. And then I was going to use a gray, and this turned out to be really brown. And I thought, oh, well, maybe it'll dry different. And I'm too impatient to wait for it to dry because it did not look like it swatch at all. Like at all. It looked like it was a muddy brown. And so I was like, ugh, I'll just go ahead and put it in there and then move on. I love this dusk color, you guys. It is a gorgeous dark blue, but it turned out to be like more of an emerald green. So yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on with my colors because dusk is usually my favorite. Either that or maybe it's just the video. And that's making it look different colors. I'm not really sure. But dusk is a beautiful blue color. Just lying my butt off right here, though. And I'm going to make the raindrops blue as well. I made the wind in blue and then the raindrops in blue. Now, I should have done a lighter blue, to be honest, for the wind because that technically is the color. But at the time, I wanted it to be dark so it could be seen on everything that I'm going to put on this layout. And then I thought I was going to add a little bit of light gray by adding the silver, and then I changed my mind and stopped in the middle. And now I am looking for a lighter gray, and it's all dried out, so I'm trying to get it to come out. And then, of course, I relieve the pressure because if you squeeze it, it's a closed tube unless you squeeze it and then the ink comes out of it. And, of course, when I squeezed it, it just started just blooching out everywhere and making a big old blob and a big old mess. And it just looks really dark, too. So I am going to end up taking the silver and painting on top of it. Now, when I add the silver, it actually adds almost like a coating to where I cannot add anything on top of it, like I can't blend with it because of its metallic properties. Something is keeping a barrier between me and mixing my paints because I don't like the silver and it mixing with the lightning bolt. So I do end up going back over again with the lighter gray just to try to change the color a little bit so it doesn't match the lightning bolt. I'm using the other side of the yellow cardstock that I used to cut out my gears. Because it's close to my heart. I've got a light yellow and a dark yellow, so that was perfect. And then I'm just using that same shimmer color to back my lightning bolt, just making really quick work of this particular cut file because it did not have a whole lot of open space to be backing. And then I'm going to color the same shimmer paper with the dusk, hoping that it was going to be lighter, and it technically is. But I'm going to cut those all out as well. But I also take the white edge and try to color that in using the dusk. So, and of course I didn't do the middle pieces before I started gluing them to paper. So I do end up doing a messy job of that as well. It just ends up being a big old painty mess. And here pretty soon it's going to be a big old inky mess as well. So once I get that done, some of my darker color did bleed on the moon just a little bit, so I was trying to blend that in just a little bit more, but by this point it's fairly well dry, and so all I end up doing is making my moon a little darker, which I'm okay with, and that is my cut file. So that was super fun. So now what I'm going to be doing is taking these cardstocks here and adding dimension to them. I'm starting with a lighter ink, and then by the time that I'm done, I end up doing a pretty dark ink color because it just looked better instead of being such a bright yellow. I do end up liking the darker yellow. First I have the mustard seed, and that is what I am using at first. And then I have fossilized amber for my dark color and giving in the shading and whatnot. So I'm going to go back over again very, very briefly with the dark amber. Again, just adding dimension because of shadows and shading and things like that. So I'm trying not to cover up everything that I did with the mustard seed, but at the same time, basically applying it on top of it as well. I almost forgot about my larger gears. So this is one gear, and all I did was I placed it 3 times around my layout in the Cricut Design Studio, and I sliced it so that way I had multiple cuts, and it was already cut, and I didn't have to worry about, I am so sorry. And I didn't have to worry about such a large gear and handling it and gluing it, cutting it, gluing it again, cutting it, and things like that. So this way I can put my layout together a lot faster rather than worried about, oh, I have to glue this down and cut it and then glue it again and cut it. So I just went ahead and did all the slicing on the Cricut. Plus it lays on the mat a lot nicer too, by the way. Just letting you know. All right, so I'm going to very heavily ink the outside edge of my wood grain, only because I used tape to tape it down on my original project. And so it left that white border. I should have left the white border. I really did like how it looked, but the problem with that is I probably wouldn't have liked how it looked in the middle, because it, it joined in the middle instead of just being on the three sides. So I inked the edges and kind of gave my wood grain a little bit of depth by doing that. And then I also inked the edges of my brown cardstock as well, that are going to be ending up being my bases. Now what I'm doing for more dimension is I'm just very quickly going over the outside edges. I'm not trying to heavily create it, but I'm just going over the outside edges of all of my gears with walnut stain, and I used ground espresso on the outsides of my wood grain, in case you were curious. And so yes, I'm going to just barely touching the edges of all of my gears to give them that light edge. Now, I also off camera went and spread them out on my desk, and I sprayed them with water to activate some of the yellow ink. It's very subtle, but you can still see the effect on it. So I really like that. I cut my 2 gray pieces down to an 8x10, so it's going to cover up the majority of that wood grain. But then again, so is everything else that I'm going to put on this layout. I could have just ended up doing a plain brown background and nobody would have been the wiser, if I'm being honest. Because it definitely would not have been shown at all. Oh, I don't know what happened in the corner of my cut file for it to look all torn up and looks like somebody ate something out of it. I'm not really sure, but the gear ends up covering it up, and you're never going to see that it had some pieces cut out of it so much that it was actually loose right there. Excuse me. So I'm going to go ahead and glue them down, knowing that I'm not going to move them around. I am using the other layout as a reference point as far as putting this together very quickly, because like I said, it's Janet's layout, so it's not like I have this layout in my stash already. This is my layout, and Janet's layout is completely different. It's got different colors, different embellishments. It is completely different altogether with her own photos. And so this one is more for me and my husband's photos, actually, because these are all his work photos. Him driving up to the mine site and driving to the summit so you can see down into the valley. And he says that this was like overnight. The storm hit overnight. And 1 minute it's what you see the semi taking the drill up to, so there's barely any snow. To the next minute, everything is covered in snow. And then one of the mornings that they got there, which is the 5x7 on the right page, the whole drill was frozen. Like every little drop of it was frozen. And so yes, it was quite interesting. So he had to go away and work on this drill out of town. So it is not Nevada that he is working in. But again, it's just one of those things. So he's actually farther up north, which means that the weather is even colder up there. So yes, and I believe this was in March of this year. If I'm remembering correctly, I think this is March of this year that this was happening. And then that's his friend that he goes out of town with every now and then, and he's just a goofy guy. And they were having a drink after work, and they were just being goofy, and I could not leave him out, to be honest. So my pictures are a little bit different than Janet's. I believe I have the same amount of pictures. I think it's 12 pictures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yep, 12 pictures. And I believe it's the same. I created 2 5x7s, where for hers, I believe it was a 4x4 and a 4x6 were her biggest pictures. and then she had 3x4s and these little 2x3s. So she had a lot more room on her layout. I actually wanted mine to be this big, just because of the fact that there's so much to look at. So, the detail of the frozen drill. And then I love the fact that the two of them had to use two cranes to lift that the tower off of the deck. And he says that they couldn't even lift it. Basically, all they did was they used their crane enough to hold it up from the trailer, and then the guy drove out from underneath it just so they could put it on the ground. He says, yeah, there was no swinging, there was no nothing. It was what it is. And then, of course, the other picture next to it, next to the two cranes, is the tower on the ground. And then my husband took a picture from his service truck of the windshield freezing. He says you could leave it off for just a hot minute and it still was frozen when you get back in it. And there's the drill in the windshield. So I thought that was pretty cool too. So yeah, just a bunch of really cool pictures and them getting the job done and still having fun. My title is going to come in later. I just wanted to make sure there was enough room on all, for everything. And like I said, instead of using trees, I'm actually just using snowflakes. Just because I felt like that was, for one, you're never going to find a tree on a mine site. It's all worked earth and moved dirt and things like that. So it has been well trampled on by machines and trucks and things like that, and people and all sorts of stuff. So you're never going to find trees. And so I thought the snow is perfect because when they started there was barely any snow on the ground. And before they left, it was, inches of snow on the ground. Doesn't sound like a lot, but there was quite a bit of difference between what was there and what wasn't there. And like I said, I just really wanted a layout like this for myself, but it didn't have to be exactly like what I created for Janet's layout. I also went to my die cuts. Now this is a Bramble Fox die cut that has a bunch of numbers and things, and it's absolutely perfect. You have to know numbers and weights in order to lift things with your crane. You also have to know a ton of numbers to be a mechanic, like pressures and torques and things like that. So you definitely need to know numbers, and so this is absolutely perfect. Adding in all these numbers, and then I just added some tickets. That is what I did on Janet's layout. It's not necessarily pertainable on this layout. I just wanted some filler pieces, and so again, I was trying to hide the words of the tickets and just to have the numbers present. But some of the words that I picked out were collecting, because they had to collect the parts to be able to do the job. And then there's collections, which is, like they had the parts organized into different sets. Like this is for, the tower, this is for the engine, this is for, the deck, things like that. And the bottom right photo actually shows where some of those parts are still in play in their different sections. So I thought that was perfect. And then down at the bottom, it says perfect specimen, which I thought was kind of cool because it's a brand new drill. They hauled it up there, they followed it up there, and then they put it together and watched it drill its first hole. So I thought that was a spitting, absolutely perfect for them to do that. And then the other one, I believe down at the bottom, I think it says wandering. I think. And I had a good reason why I put that down there as well. I think it has to do with wondering if this will work type of thing. It doesn't say wander with an O, it's wander with an A. But yeah. I also thought I was going to put a snowflake behind my title, where the words were, so they could stick out more, but I didn't like it as much. And so I redid it and just put the title down using the lines of the wind as my as like my lines for writing a sentence. And it says no matter the weather, because it's their job. No matter what the weather is, this is their job. This is what he does. He is a field technician, which means he works outside. And you've got to be a different breed to do this. It really, you do. You can't just decide 1 minute in the summer that this is cool because I'm outside and I get to, enjoy the beautiful weather and blah, blah, blah. And then the next minute, oh man, yeah, it's 50 degrees outside. No, I'm not going out there. Or it's -2. Yeah, no, not going out there either. So you just can't do that. You just got to wear layers and hope that you stay warm, take lots of breaks and warm up in the truck so you don't get frostbite, things like that. It definitely is a different breed of people to do this job. But in the end, I absolutely love how this looked. So here are the close-ups. I am super stoked. I love the yellow gears that match the logo from my husband's truck and company. I absolutely love it. And again, it matches the drill because that's, again, their company is like it's like a blue-gray. I think they call it blue, and then that yellow. And I just think that that's a perfect match for that. And then I love the snowflakes mixed in with the gears. It just looks like, the machinery that's frozen, and it's just my favorite. All right, so here are a couple close-ups. Again, this cut file was absolutely perfect to describe what that my husband works in all different kinds of weather, and I absolutely loved it. I love taking my cut files and coloring them in instead of backing them. Even if I didn't back the lightning bolt or the moon, I still probably would have just loved it being colored. I almost was thinking that it needed to be in white in order for it to stick out more on my layout, but I do like how it blends in. I like how the wind makes perfect lines for my title, and how the moon sits right perfectly in that gear and all that stuff. I just absolutely love it. All right, you guys, don't forget to check out the playlist that I have down below for 31 days of cut files, as well as Janet Fritz's channel. She is my partner in crime when it comes to 31 days. And again, I cannot thank you guys enough for hanging out with me today. I really, truly appreciate it. And I will check you guys all later. Bye.